Hello everyone, my name is Zach, and today I'd like to present my documentary project. Unlike some other students who chose interesting topics like the use of vapes at Plant High School, I chose a rather boring one. I chose to talk to you about unemployment. Is unemployment as big of an issue as some make it out to be? Is it the best indicator of a good economy? Is a low unemployment rate always a good thing? Unemployment is usually seen as something bad. Politicians love to talk about how they lower the unemployment rate because they know people care about it. In the last part of the 2000s, the economy went down the toilet. Unemployment started affecting a ton of Americans. In October of 2009, the national unemployment rate rose all the way to 10% of the workforce. People were panicking, and everyone was worried about keeping their jobs. Nowhere was this recession more felt than in Elkhart, Indiana, where the unemployment rate plunged to a United States worst 20% in March of 2009. Just like the national economy, Elkhart also recovered, and by 2008 the rates improved dramatically. In fact, in January of 2018, Elkhart had just over 2% unemployment rate, half the national average of 4%. Elkhart has been below 4% unemployment rate for 34 consecutive months. This comeback was due to the upward trend that the economy has been following. Elkhart is home to 65% of the recreational vehicle industry, also known as the RV industry. The RV industry employs 12% of local Elkhart workers. This is because the companies pay extremely well for a job that requires no prior experience or schooling. The industry sets wages that other companies find tough to compete with. At full production, a RV factory worker can make $90,000 a year, and a foreman at the factory can make $100,000. The work is tough, but even weaker or older people can work at RV firms that make parts for around $15 to $20 an hour. These wages make sense because the average weekly wages in Elkhart has been rising. In the third quarter of 2017, they went up 6.3% from the year before. In the RV industry, the average annual salary in 2016 rose 17%. However, not everything in Elkhart is positive. In the city, over 9,500 jobs have no takers. Workers are bussed in each day, but not even the 25,000 commuters a day can fill all the jobs available. This causes a set of problems in Elkhart because some businesses just can't find enough employees to work. Companies like Walmart, McDonald's, and KFC have trouble finding people willing to work for their lower wages. People choose to work at the RV factories because of the better salaries. A lot of students skip college and jump right into the job market to take advantage of all the opportunities. Housing is hard to find, and median house prices have risen about 6.5% annually over the past 2 years. Investors are scared to build homes in Elkhart because it relies on a strong economy that drives the sales of RVs to stay booming. They do not want to risk another mortgage crisis like the one only a few years back. This means that even finding somewhere to rent in Elkhart is very difficult, and many choose to live outside of the city and join the thousands of people who are bussed in every day just to work and then are returned home later in the day. They view the economy here as a balloon that will eventually burst. So, despite the incredibly low unemployment rate, things in Elkhart are not all sunshine and rainbows. The reason the RV industry employs so many workers is because the companies are scared to invest in automation that's expensive, even though it would lower production costs. They can't be sure the industry will stay strong and not crash like back in 2009. Basically, Elkhart is a shining example of an economic success, but one that no one can say for sure how long will last. So we can see that even though the data points to an ideal economy that should be celebrated like a miracle, the reality is not so simple. The lower desire for jobs in Elkhart causes issues that are unique to this area. higher home prices, a lack of workers willing to work for low wages, and an absence of investment in the city are all tough problems to have in a supposedly booming economy. Does this mean we should rethink our mindsets about unemployment? Probably not, because Elkhart does not represent the entirety of the United States and is only a small piece of the puzzle. Of course, if you let someone choose between a lack of jobs or a surplus of jobs, I'd bet the majority of people would choose the latter. You might say having too many jobs is a nice problem to have. It does point out that perhaps there's a healthy level of unemployment that allows a majority of workers to find jobs, but does not eliminate the desire to work for a lower wage if necessary. The American population loves low prices, and a more selective workforce would raise the price for a lot of our everyday goods. As a society, there are jobs that may not be ideal, but they are essential to sustain the low prices we become accustomed to these days. This is through only the lens of money, and does not factor in the people who are forced to settle for these jobs. Should we sacrifice our demand for the cheapest possible product to improve the livelihood of the average American? That's a tough question for anyone, and since I'm barely a legal adult, I'll leave it up to others to provide the answer for it. Moving on, let's return to Elkhart, Indiana, the place where the RV companies have decided to call home. Why is it that Elkhart was hit so hard in the late 2000s recession? Well, to some it may be obvious, but nevertheless I will do my best to explain the reason why. RVs are recreational vehicles, and as the name implies, they are mainly made for recreational use, such as camping and road trips. Because of this, RVs are a luxury item, and you'd only buy one if you had the money to spend. Or you could rent one, but still, it's an expendable purchase. So, when the economy is going through expansion, more people are able to affordably buy or rent a RV. On the flip side, if the economy is contracting, then people have less extra money and more important things to spend that money on than RVs. This is the same for the rental car industry, the airline industry, and the entertainment industry as well. This means the RV industry follows the trends of the economy closely and is not always a for sure successful business. For Elkhart, where, if you remember, has 65% of the RV industry in America, you can see why the recession hit them especially hard, making them have the highest rate of unemployment in 2009. You can also see why Elkhart is doing so well today because of the comeback of the economy. Of course, the economy of Elkhart is a little more complicated than that, but is an extremely large part of the puzzle. The low 2% unemployment rate is something the people of Elkhart proudly share, and the city was actually the first location outside of the White House that Obama visited after getting reelected in 2012 because he used Elkhart as an example of how his work had improved the economy. So clearly, the low rate of unemployment is important. A place like Rochester, New York, for example, would benefit greatly from dropping its 6% unemployment rate to something closer to that of Elkhart's. The lack of serious unemployment in Elkhart is overall a blessing, but where the sun shines, there will always be shadows. A simple number on a graph can never tell the full story, and not every problem is blatantly obvious. Hopefully the story of Elkhart proves that you have to look at a subject at every angle possible before you can make your conclusion. Too often, people will argue and lecture about topics that they are not fully educated on. With more information at your disposal, you can make more informed decisions that support the things you value the most. Of course, this is only the ideal, and you can't be expected to be the expert on the details of everything. For most, these things are best left to those who are elected to deal with them. Whether or not full reliance on the US government is a good idea is not for me to say. A lot of people are fine with being ignorant about the specific details about a certain subject. Maybe that's a smart decision. Maybe you should learn to value your time more instead of sitting through a boring lecture on a city in Indiana that you'll never visit. Well, I guess it's too late for that. Anyway, thank you for listening to me, and I hope you found something of interest in my project.